And we're going to talk about when to call it quits if it's just not working. All right. Coffee machine's picking up. It's going to have to be an afternoon latte today. All right.
Yep.
That's how it goes.
Already had one.
Yeah. That's how it goes sometimes. Independent of everything else. And before we get into this, which is going to be a hot button, they got me on an email today. You know, sometimes you just have to respond and have a little bit of fun. And we had this art business workshop earlier this morning, right? It was a great workshop. And one Taylor, TE on the marketing team, sent me some Mark Twain quotes. Okay. And Mark Twain's got this book that he wrote that no one's really read called The Innocents Abroad. And he essentially got paid to go on a cruise ship and travel around the world, write about it for like a magazine. And he wrote this book. And so, you know, he's got his constant wit, right? So I'm going through my Kindle highlights and I see like 20 of them. And I just love his creativity. I can't get off of it, right? So I go into my art storefront's email box and I get one of these emails. And this is a normal type of email, okay? And I promise it'll be short and we'll get to it. Hey, Patrick, super interested in the service. I'll make you a deal. I'm going to give you my biggest original plus 15% of my prints for life. All I need is a free membership. And I can't remember what his name was. And I'm not knocking you, brother, but I just had to have a little Mark Twain fun. I was like, dude, this is a great deal. I'll take it. Let's do this. Here's the deal. You're going to pay full price for your membership. And after you've marketed for 4 years consecutively and followed all of my advice marketing, and I see you putting in the hours week in, week out, 52 weeks a year, I'll take the deal, refund you, take the original and take the 15%. Please respond back. Now, I'm probably not going to get a response on that one, am I? But it's interesting how it goes both ways. I had to flip the script. Enough about messing with that poor gentleman today. You know, have a little bit of fun, turnabout fair play. We got to talk about validating the art, and it's come up 25 times in the last 2 weeks, and then 50 times the weeks before that, and the weeks before that. So we need to
always
define the term. Yeah, we need to define the term validation. And in the art world, ultimately, with all the other BS boiled out of it, will your art or photography sell? Joinder, will your art or photography sell to people not named mom, dad, brother, sister, best friends, family, right?
And exactly. And I think, and I don't mean to jump in on you, but I had a thought on this, and I think you'll appreciate it as an entrepreneur, right? We're both entrepreneurs, okay? And started several companies. And, you know, I think what we should do is step back and talk about this in the context of just any business, right? Yep. Validating your product will sell is a fundamental thing that you need to do as an entrepreneur in any business, right?
Yeah.
So what do? You go out and you sell your product, right? Like, for example, if I'm thinking about starting a taco shop, Nick's Taco Shop, okay? Literally, like, yes. I'm sorry. Let me say this. If I'm thinking about starting a pretty serious Mexican restaurant, right?
Yep.
And my main product is going to be these amazing fish tacos, let's just say, right? Like high-end fish and the whole thing, right? What do? You do not go invest in the restaurant, you know, build out the whole concept, get a business license, you know, sign a lease for a year's rent, you know, and empty the bank accounts and quit your job and go for it. That's not what you do. The first thing you do, okay, is you make some of the product and you go out to some different places, right? You might go in front of some corporate buildings with lawyers where they're working, you know, where high net worth individuals, whatever it takes today, you do it today. And you make like 30 of them, you know, and you package them up really nicely. And you dress nicely and you get out there and you probably set up a table. Even today, I would do it with a mask on. Okay, and gloves and the whole thing. I would look so sharp. I would and I'd say, I'm trying to validate this new Mexican concept. It's going to be a restaurant, but I'm testing it on the clientele I plan to have. I'm offering these tacos for $10 each, right? And see what happens. Right? Have them taste them there. And you know what I would probably do? I'd say they're $10 each. But try one right now. Here's a plate and whatever. If you don't like it, you don't have to pay me. If you like it, pay me, right? Pay me. Like, and you validate that they like the product. And now you have $150 in your pocket of real people departing with their cash for your product, okay? Then you should do it again and again and again, right? With different things. And then now it's no longer a, hey, Mr. Mentor businessman, I'm thinking about starting this restaurant. Do you think I could make it happen? No. It's your product in the market, and you go sell it. Because I have news for you. If you can't sell your product to real human beings on the streets, okay, right out in your town, your local community, or whatever, even during COVID, you're not going to sell it online, right? Now, okay, wait. I should adjust that for a second, because the same way that you could sell it with your current Instagram or Facebook following, same thing. You should be able to do a flash sale today with your product, your art, right, and sell it on the spot. You should be able to do one or the other. If you don't, or if you can't, okay, no one can solve that problem for you. Nobody can solve that problem for you. And you're dancing around the real problem, which is, can you sell your art? You have to be able to sell your product, folks. You, not someone else, you. You have to be able to do it. If you can't, everything is going to crumble. It's that simple, right? Because maybe your art is good, but you can't figure out how to sell it. Like you're in person and you're confusing people, or there's something that's turning people off. I don't know what it is, but you have to be, or like you just can't make it happen. Either way, you got a problem. You might have the best art in the world and you can't sell it, or the best product in the world. Imagine the guy that, imagine somebody else that does my restaurant idea, the taco idea, right? But he goes to the same building and, he's in shorts and he's barefoot and he doesn't look the part, and he's, and he's just, like the whole thing is sort of off. Like he's charging more money, but there's the packaging is dirty. It's got salsa spilled on it. Like the whole presentation is just a big turnoff, right? Like, and then he's like, I couldn't sell my product. It's like, exactly. Your product might have been very good. It might have been amazing, but you know what? You turned everybody off, or there's something not clicking. Either way, you have a problem.
Yeah. And I don't know what was out there historically speaking, but Nick and I are entrepreneurs and follow everything that goes on in tech quite closely and have for years. And so there was this guy, Eric Ries, that wrote this book called The Lean Startup, right? That I think fundamentally changed the way everybody talks about this, introduced some jargon into the world that now everyone uses in the startup world. And, yes, we're talking about selling art or photography, but when we say the startup world, this book is really just about business. It's just about business, right? And validation is the core of what it is. And out of that book came the term, the MVP, the minimum viable product. In Nick's example, it wasn't about renting the building and filling the decor and putting a giant taco on the roof, kind of like that donut thing in LA, and getting mariachis and doing the entire thing. It's about going to the door the cheapest, quickest way possible with a little cart and making tacos and see if people, line up out the door. It wasn't about building the restaurant. What's the quickest way you could figure out whether or not your product would work? That's the MVP. Create that and go. And it totally translates to what we do selling products, period, right? And so all of this discussion has come along out of this book, and there's follow-ups to it, and everybody in the industry uses the terminology. And I remember in my young Gusto days, I printed out this 5 steps of product market fit and validation on my wall, right? And I tried to find it as I was Googling ahead of this, and I couldn't find it. But one of the dangers in all of this that happens again and again and again, and look, it doesn't matter if you're an artist or a photographer, or you're trying to start a startup, or you want to build a soccer team, whatever it is that you want to do. Everyone in the venture capital community, the people that actually write the checks, say the number one problem, and I'm quoting this one from Andreessen Horowitz website, but it says the number one problem I've seen for startups, and artists, photographers, same thing, is they don't actually have product market fit, I'm using another term, when they think they do. They have not actually truly validated their art when they think they do, right? And what do I mean when they think they do? You've won awards. You've gotten a ton of likes and comments and shares, right? People have told you for years your work's amazing. But until you take the credit card, the payment, okay, then you have not validated anything. And you can't just take it once. You have to take it several times. So I think, you know, there's no way in one episode that we could possibly tackle this whole thing. I think it's going to have to be many, many discussions, and there are many, many layers to it as well. Early on in this business at Art Storefronts, I recorded 2 podcast episodes on it, and they had a title I don't even want to repeat, but the concept was, what is the best way about going about validating this? So I think we should get into that and talk about that somewhat. And then I think we should pivot to, when do you call it quits? Because it's a very important part of the discussion. And my fear, my danger, and you know, we get all kinds, right? All kinds of every 350 artist and photographer questions I'm fielding on a weekly basis. Okay, I've seen everything under the sun at this point, and a lot of times, you know, you give advice and you tell people to do things and you provide the best practices and we give your best playbooks out there, and some people just take off and destroy it. Like some people do it right away. And then there's the middle of the curve, varying different degrees of success at different times. And then there's some others that are just stuck. They're just stuck. And they all took the same advice, right? They all took the same advice. It's the same tactical, right? You just skin it for what you're doing. And we see all these varying different degrees of success. And my fear is that without us clearly articulating and validating and not articulating and codifying this validation strategy and when to call it quits, you might potentially end up spending all this extra time and energy and effort and years and marketing and doing this and grinding, and you haven't validated it because it hasn't been pounded in your head how important it is to do. Now, I'm not saying we're going to get that done in one episode, but it's a genuine theory I have, right? It's why that guy that emailed earlier, like, we're not in the business of picking horses, okay? I can't tell you whether your art is going to sell. Nick can't tell you. Only the market can tell you. And she's brutally honest. She's brutally honest. She doesn't care about any touchy-feely anything, or likes, or shares, or stats, or how awesome people tell you are. Like, it either a transaction happens or it doesn't, right? So I think we could talk about some validation strategies. I think we can talk about when to potentially call it quits with 2 other quick caveats. One, it sounds like it's likely just for people that are just getting started. Nothing could be further than the truth. It applies as equally to us, Art Storefronts, is where we are at business, to any of the rest of you, right? Because guess what? You're going to have new initiatives. You're going to have new series. And this is a muscle that you need to build like anything else, right? Pepsi Clear isn't around anymore, is it? Right? They probably should have tested that a little bit better, right? Like, so those are the types of examples. Like, you're going to have new series, you're going to have new directions, you're going to try new things, you're going to get bored and stagnated with what you're currently working on and wanting to go in another direction. And so understanding this concept of validation, how to potentially systematize it, how to think about it, like, this is a really important topic for everybody, us included.
It's so important.
Us included. Like, new marketing initiative, right? We're trying this new thing. Like, how much time are we going to give it? What is going to constitute validation on that, right? Like, what are those metrics going to be? And like, here's what we're going to devote to it. It's science, right?
You know,
it's
yeah,
science.
exactly. And do you know what I love about it is that, like, I think it sets it sets an entrepreneur on the right path right from the start. Okay, which is, rather than taking a top-down approach, you take a bottom-up approach, right? You start with the customer and you work backwards. Because when you're validating whether your art or your product will sell, what else happens in that process, Pat? You're talking to customers.
Yep.
And what happens when you talk to customers? You find out what really resonates with them, you know? What content really resonates with them. And so when you and I are advising, you know, non-Art Storefronts members, and they're like, you know, I've got this niche and I've got that niche, and, you know, I do painting and I also do photography, or I do boats and I also do still life. I mean, like, all these different things. You and I are like, just get out there and start selling it, right? Online, you know, to your current social media following. And we have a way of doing that. And we've got a playbook, guys, a validation playbook, and we should get it in the comments for everybody. And that's what you should follow if you are in this position where you need to validate your art, right? But that bottom-up approach is the way that you should run the entire business. And so it sets you on the right path right from the start, you know, where you're starting with the end, the people who, You're trying to provide real value in their life, right? Through your product. And you're finding out whether they like it or not. If I go back to the restaurant analogy, right, with my tacos, what if somebody's like, hey, I love your steak tacos. These are unbelievable. You know what I mean? But I really don't like your fish. And I'm like, whoa, the whole reason I'm here is because I thought I had these amazing fish tacos. And I went out there, and in one day, everything in my mind got flipped around, because all of a sudden I've got the best steak tacos in town and I didn't even realize it. That seasoning that I put on there, you know, I thought it was pretty good, but everybody's going crazy over it. They were asking me to order more so they could take it home, you know, and I go back and I'm just blown away, right? Pat, how many times has that happened to you, right?
Oh, God.
Like situations like that. I mean, it has happened to me so many times where I've been proven completely wrong. In fact, more often than not, you find out that your hunch is wrong. Is that not true?
Oh, all the time. All the time.
All the time.
And the analogy is like, you know, let's keep it in our niche. You're trying to sell art or photography. That's what your overall overarching goal is. So let me give you an analogy about why this process is so powerful, works so well. You ever see The Karate Kid? You ever see The Karate Kid, right? What is the Karate Kid trying to do? He's trying to learn to do karate, okay? What does Mr. Miyagi having him do? Okay, paint the fence, wax on, wax off on the car, right? Side to side. And the point I'm making is you're trying to sell art or photography. Learning this whole validation process tricks you into learning all the skills so you can actually do Kung Fu, right? Or karate or whatever it is. And I guess Karate Kid, Kung Fu, Karate Kid for Pete's sake. But that's what it is, right? To your point, you trick yourself, not knowing it cognizantly, to actually taking these things to market, to making the creative course corrections that come at you, that can only come at you from validating your art. And you end up getting there by a route that you didn't realize. And all of a sudden, you know, you can do karate. And you see all these people like, you know, I'm working on my stuff. I'm just going to get 10 more pieces. And once I have 10 more pieces, I'm going to launch. And I'm sitting there going, I don't want you to do that. I don't want you to waste your time on 10 more pieces. Take the 2 you have and go sell them. Go sell them and see whether or not you can get it done, right? It's the same thing. It's the same thing. Like, you know, your analogy of the taco and starting the restaurant and taking out a lease and doing all that. It's like people ask us all the time, like, hey, you know, do you offer financing? Is there a financing plan? It's like, yeah, we do, but I'd prefer you don't do it, because you're hanging your hat like, well, I'm going to quit my job and do this. Like, no, go validate first, right? Go validate first. So
yeah. And if you can't go out there and sell enough products to pay for the business, you got a bigger problem here, right?
You're not ready.
You have to solve that problem first.
Yeah.
You're not ready.
Yeah.
You're not ready, you know? I mean, look, there's a couple, like 2 other things that I want to say on this. Like, I've never actually mentioned this before, but I think it's or publicly at least, which is when we started Art Storefronts, we made mock-ups, okay? Design mock-ups of what the website, you know, buying experience would be for the art buyers, okay? And we sent it out to about 30 artists and photographers, and we got commitments from them. Actual, like, had them pay $30, right, for the year if we were to build it. Actually got money out of them from mock-ups, right? And then it took us a year, like 8 months or 2 a year, to build out all the software to actually deliver the product to them, right? Yeah. Like, you would never think that
MVP.
Yeah, MVP, exactly. I mean, but look, that's after 20 years, or I'm sorry, at that time, probably what, 12 or 13 years of being an entrepreneur, somewhere around there, and learning the hard way. But it just shows you that it can be done even for a big project. Now, what I want to say though is that you know, what year was it that we started our first company? 1998, I think. Let's just say it's 1998.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's 97.
Okay, so, you know, a long time ago, right? But yeah. And then I started my second company in 2003, right, which was Breathing Color. And the thing that I have to say is that back in those days, it was really hard to start a business. And I think that's one of the biggest problems these days, right? It's a lot easier. All these generic website companies, right, have made, like, they're marketing at you, and they're making you think that if you just start a website, you have a business. And there could be nothing further from the truth, okay? Nothing further from the truth. Remember, guys, you know, we quote this stat often. You can Google it, and in fact, you should. 99% of all Shopify stores fail. 99% of all Shopify stores fail. Google it. Go Google it. Why is that? Well, you can read all the articles that are there. It's because the only thing that you have to solve is marketing. You have to solve the marketing problem. Your biggest part of your marketing problem is your product and whether it will sell, right? Your product is part of the marketing. And so you have to do that first, and then you have to market your business. If you don't do that, you will never have a business. But in this day and age, once the generic website platform, Shopify, Squarespace, Wix, WordPress, go down the list, right? GoDaddy, a gazillion options for a generic website got out there. Anybody can just launch a business like today. You could start a website today and upload a couple of things, and all of a sudden, hey, I've got a business. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't. Like, that's the worst part about it, is like, it's like you're being attracted to taking this backdoor route, when in the old days, before, when it was hard to build a website, you had to pay custom website developers, or there were no websites. It was very expensive. You had to be very intentional about like, whoa, I'm going to throw $5 to $8 grand into this website, and like, I got to make sure I got a business first. And so the lean startup was written in those early years, to try to help people to understand, like, don't go down this road until you validated your product with a minimum viable product. You know what I mean? And so that's what's kind of underpinning this whole thing. And so it's really good for you guys, all you guys listening that haven't necessarily validated your art yet, like, to understand that these are the factors at play, right? People are trying to get you to buy websites and buy logos and buy this and buy that, before you've even validated your product. You can validate your product in like a week. Like that, I mean, seriously, you really can. You could do it practically today. I'm just gonna say a week or 2 weeks, just because we're in COVID and it's a little bit harder, but you just go outside. Just go anywhere where people are congregating. You don't need a business license or anything like that. Just take a few products out there, you know what I mean? And have a little sign and a little table or whatever, and say, I'm just, these are hard times and I'm trying to figure out whether I should start this business, and I've got this amazing deal, and here's my art or photography, and, boom. Like, you should be able to sell a couple of pieces, or you also, or you go online and you do our validation strategy, right? Where you do a flash sale today or tomorrow, you buy a couple prints and you post it to your social media following, Instagram and Facebook. We've got a whole playbook for exactly what to say and how to do this. And you do either or both of those two things. If you could do them both, and you'll have like, a full validation. If you do that and you can't make anything happen, you should not do anything. You should, retreat, try to figure out what you might have done wrong, or maybe there's a problem there and you got to fix that first. Keep trying to fix that. And then once you have success there, that's it. That's all you need. You're ready to go. You are ready to go at that point, but you got to have that validation. And it's so easy to get with almost no investment at all. You don't need a website. You don't need a business card. You don't need anything. You know what I mean? You literally, you don't need a consultant, because we're giving you the exact strategy on how to do it for free. For free. We have, how many people at this point have done this and have successfully made it happen, Pat? A lot. There's been a lot of people where you and I pumped the brakes on them. I remember this one gentleman specifically on one of our non-member workshops, which, by the way, we have one tomorrow, guys. We've got one tomorrow at 11 a.m. Pacific, 1 Central, 2 Eastern. So get on our email list if you want to come to this. It's a free art business consulting session.
You can register. You can register in the show notes on any of the links or anywhere else. But yeah, keep going.
Beautiful. Yeah. So this one gentleman, he's like, I've been a photographer for 15 years, and I've a dark room. He's going through all of his credentials, and he sounded like he was really legit, and he had great photography in the background. He's like, I haven't been able to sell anything in 15 years, and I think it's my niche. And it's the stuff that I've just decided to shoot and all that. And he's like, I feel like I should just join Art Storefronts because you guys will help me like to finally pick my niche and make some sales. And I said, nope. He's like, and he's dancing around it, right? He's like, well, I feel like, like I can tell you guys really know what you're talking about and all this. I really want to do this. And I go, nope. I just, and that's what happens. People want to get around this some way. And it's like, nope, you got to face this, because if you can't do it, when I'm giving you all the advice in the world and we're giving you a validation strategy and we're giving you the advice. If you can't follow the advice that we're giving you right now up front, then you're not going to be able to follow the advice with all of our art marketing calendar and all the assets that we give you to put the wind behind your back. You know what I mean? To help you market your art. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, as you're just talking it out, I'm realizing how much more we're going to have to do on this. And I was just like thinking in my head, right? Like if I
what
was,
are you thinking?
I mean, if I was brand new, and given how cheap the prints are these days, right? And this isn't some sort of pitch for print business. Like, look, I don't care where you get them; they're cheap. Okay. I would, and mine would be photography because I couldn't draw a stick figure to save my life. I'd do my 6, 7, 10, 15 different styles. And I would put myself on some sort of life cycle that was so short. I mean, shoot for 2 weeks. I'm assuming you have, you know, your craft is honed at this point. I would go shoot something for 2 weeks. I would get probably 20 prints. I would try to sell them for 2 weeks, at the end of which I'd fire sale them all, realize I either did it or I didn't do it, and then do it again, right? 2 week sprints or something like that. I would need to map it out. But the amount of places that you can set up with a table and your work and start talking about it and attempting to sell it, even in this COVID world, is pretty striking. And it's still so much easier, so much faster, so much more efficient face-to-face, right? As much as I'm a digital guy and I advocate for all these digital things, we're living in a time that makes that face-to-face difficult. It's still really possible. And better still, you're going to feel way more confident when you have a mask covering your face, right? You know, they won't be able to see you frown or whatever else if the results don't go the way you want it to go. But independent of that, I think we need to come up with more and more layers to it and more aspects of validation. And, you know, Juan, I see your comment. I'm not sure, you know, who told you if you've never sold a thing to jump aboard. We can get into the semantics on that later. But if you sold offline, then you're good to go, right? Like there's many that have sold several thousands of dollars offline over the courses of years. Okay, you're ready to go. But also too, there's layers of validation, right? Like you're validated at some basic level, like, hey, you sold, you know, a bunch of pieces offline, a couple $1,000s offline. You're ready to go. You're good to go. People want your art. But then there's also like, I have the ambition to sell $500,000 worth of art a year. Okay. And so there's additional layers of validation as you go up the chain too. But I still think offline's best. I still think the flash sales work incredibly. I get it if you don't have a huge Facebook following that can be difficult, but it does seem like we need something more substantive there. I'm just thinking out loud in my head. I mean, I'll start creating it, but also too, like validating new styles, right? Validating the big show you want to have, right? Like, you know, that's a terrifying thing when you think about it. Like you're going to paint for 9 months or a year to have a big show and you haven't validated the styles. Whew, that's quicksand, right? Like if you're a great artist, you have a great brand, it might work out well, but what's the difference between a home run and a base hit, right? Hopefully not a year's worth of your life. I don't know.
Yeah, and you know, and Juan, we'll look into you. Like, I'd love to look into your situation and understand, because, you know, you said you're saying that you guys are talking about validation now. We've been talking about validation for years. You know what the benefit that we have is on this? The videos are saved. They're all public. They're on our YouTube channel and they're all over Facebook and Instagram.
Dude, the podcasts were like 2017, dude.
Yeah, there's a podcast episode, and it's the Does My Art Suck test. That's Patrick's, terrible title. Controversial. But
I'll regret that. I'll regret that forever.
Yeah, but I mean, we're talking about this all the time, so I'm very curious. This is not a new topic.
I'm looking at it right now, and it's July 14th and September 14th, 2017. So almost what, 3 years to the day.
Yep.
How long we've been talking about it, but we need to delve into it quicker, and we need to do some better definitions, I think, on, overall advice of when to call it quits and when to fold up shop and quit the holy game of poker, right? And
or pivot.
I said that. That's where I was going. I said this earlier on the call. Like, two of the most prolific art sellers we have on the platform were on the verge of hanging them up and pivoted, right? And the minute that they pivoted, boom, businesses took off, right? Like, the physical sentiment or the emotional sentiment is to think, like, if your stuff doesn't sell, your art sucks, you're a bad artist, you're a bad photographer. And that's not the case. You just don't have a product that the market wants, right? You've not created food the dogs want to eat. You have to just change the recipe up a little bit. So a different style, a different creative direction, a different photographic subject, something new and creative is often what's called for. And that pivot makes all the difference. But the only way you find out is if you attempt to validate, right? It's the only way you find out. Only the market can tell you. It's a big topic. It's a big topic. We got a lot of mileage on this one.
And a pivot. We got a question from Avery about a pivot. Like, how do you pivot? Pivot means, like sort of abandoning or just putting aside the niche that you've been currently painting or shooting because it's just not resonating, and pivoting to a new type of subject matter, right? One that has a market. Okay. One that has a market. And I have a heuristic for this, which is if the market already exists, if products are already being sold to that audience, then that market is probably a good market. Okay. And so like a perfect example, like, Austin, there's Austin, mugs, there's Austin t-shirts, there's Austin skylines and all that stuff, right? There is obviously an audience that exists to buy Austin products. The Beatles, a band, just take any band, right? There are Beatles shirts, there are Beatles records, there are Beatles stickers, there are Beatles posters, right? The audience exists. Don't try to create one, find one that already exists and then fit into that, right? So use that heuristic and you can reverse engineer a great niche, okay? So if you have, and that's what these people did, straight up, Pat. Is that not the truth? That's what they did. They went from, because they still have the old content on their sites. And what's ironic about this is that we have seen over time that people that buy their art on their new niche are buying the art of the old niche because they become so connected. Yeah. Yes, because the artist is the brand. And when you do your marketing correctly, it'll drive sales of your other niches, right? So you'll have a lead niche. You might just want to have a lead niche that you use in your marketing to attract people because it really resonates with them. And there's a market there. And then once you do that, you're creating collectors who will buy your other subject matters,
Yeah. The whole thing is just amazing. And I think, our job is to create successful customers, right? And so it makes a ton of sense to start on the low end and just getting started, because that's where you build the muscle, right? And you build this ability to do this, and it's super counterintuitive and it's not taught in school. And you sort of only learn it by like being in the business community and going through this whole startup exercise and everything else, but also too on the new series and the new stuff. And to be honest with you, it's the best way, period, right? And the easiest way to think about it is like, you're not an artist, okay? You're an artist of a different sort. Let me say it that way. You're a chef, right? Why are pop-up restaurants all of a sudden so popular? Pre-COVID, right? Because you get to try out a new concept for a month in like a hawker mall or in a location and then bounce, right? You get to see whether or not you can validate it before you spend any money on the menu, before you've rented and signed on the dotted line and financed all the equipment and everything else. You get to pop in, try something and pop out, right? Like, you do 12 of those in a month, or, however long it takes you to come up with a recipe book. Like, that is a tremendous amount of sense. If you're a restaurateur, my goodness, is that good, right? Like, if I owned a mall and like I was the one, or I own like a mini mall, right? Like where you have restaurants in and out of there, like I would almost say, hey, you look like a good business. Come in, before I spent all the money on the TA, right, and getting the new signs, right, whatever. Like, hey, come in, bare bones. Let's test you out for a couple of weeks and see how you do, right? If it does it really, really well, then we'll sign a 3-year lease. If not, like, you as a building owner are going to get smoked because some new concept that's not been validated is going to come in, fail in 6 months. Your building's going to be vacant for 6 months. You're going to get in a fight over the lease. Then you're going to have to get it all painted and get it all cleaned up, release it. And then potentially, some new type of business wants it. And then you have to completely redo everything. You get smoked. It's bad for everybody. So it is a muscle. It is a muscle that we need to develop. It is a concept that we need to work on, and it'll never fail you, right? Like, it applies to everything. It applies to marketing messages. Like, how quickly can you get that baby to market and find out whether or not it works, right? Like, we sort of take for granted that we're doing that all the time, but it's a muscle that's been built up like anything else over years and years and years.
Yeah. And you know what, too? Like, this is like, there's a really important lesson in this, because it's not just about, you guys, we're not just talking about those of you just starting out, this applies towards new niches that you want to go after. It applies towards new products you want to go after, right?
Everywhere.
It applies to everything. It's validating whether your product will sell, your new niche will sell, or anything else. Like, for example, we get questions like, hey, well, I'm thinking about painting a new thing. How should I launch that? Should I just launch it? Should I just throw it all on the same website? Do this, validate it, right? Do the exact same thing we're talking about. Like over the next week, get some prints made, go out in person, put it up, do the flash sale on social media, explain, follow the playbook, and see what happens. Simple as that. That's it. That's the answer to the question, right? You're thinking about, hey, I've only offered, paintings, originals, and I'm thinking about offering limited editions or prints for the first time. Go validate it. Go validate it first. Yeah. Just dip your toe in the water. No one's going to care, right? You say, hey, it's COVID. These are interesting times. I'm for this, I'm not sure if I'm ever going to do this again, but for this time period, I'm going to offer these 5 prints I'm going to offer prints for the first time. Or I've just gotten creative and I decided to paint some animals. I know I normally do beaches, but I'm doing animals here because I'm really inspired by it. And you know what? These might be the only 5 I do. I would love to see, how you guys like them. Let me know. Send me your comments. And guess what? Anyone who wants to buy one, they're 50% off until they're gone, right? And then you see what happens. So one of our painters, he did this in the last couple of weeks, right? He painted a specific type of content. All right. It was a Jesus painting. He's never done anything like that before. It was a painting of Jesus. Never done anything like it. In fact, his content couldn't have been more opposite, right? Yes. It really couldn't have been more opposite in many ways. And he sold the original on the spot. Okay. And he said, and he came back to us and he was like, I've had the biggest reaction to this that I've ever had in anything I've ever released. What do I do? And so we were kind of coaching him on that, how he should move forward. The first thing I said was, go paint another one. Go paint another one and go do it again next week. And he was like, whoa, it's like, should I do? He was thinking about like big, huge plans. And I'm like, hold on a second. You just sold it on the spot. Like you just made like $3,000, right? I'm like, go do another one and go do it again. Now you'll have $6,000, right? And then after that, you might release some prints and there's some different creative things that you could do. But the whole point here is that how easy is it to just validate this stuff, Pat? You don't have to ask, just go out and validate it. If you can't validate it, you got a problem. You know what I mean? That thing has some sort of a problem. But the best part about it, it's so liberating, you guys. I have to tell you, like, don't get emotional about it. Don't get like emotionally bought in. Just get out there and validate it and be as stoic about it as you can. Because if it doesn't work, then you just move on. And there's something really liberating about like, once you find out that the validation like didn't happen, then like you could be saving years of your life and more hours and time and money than you could possibly imagine. Because you just move on to something else, right? You just move on to a new piece of content. And the sooner that you do this, yeah, exactly. Rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. And then what eventually happens is you strike something and you will notice how everything is different. You won't have to ask. You won't have to ask me and you won't have to ask Pat, because you will know. You will feel it. Like, you know how like when you fall in love, you can feel it and you just know? That's what it feels like. You will just know. And it'll be obvious. You'll see the reactions. You'll see the demand right there. And you'll know I just struck a chord. And that's where you want to, and you know immediately, like, that's where I'm going to focus.
Yeah. We got many more layers to this, many more layers coming. If you're not a customer, you want to talk about validation, you want to talk pivoting, you want to talk about any other art or photography related questions, how do you do that? Join me for an art business workshop thrice weekly, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Got one coming up tomorrow, depending on when you're listening to this. There's always one coming up in a day or two. So I'd love to have you join me on that. There's a simple Zoom link that you can sign up for. No pressure, no harassment. It's just a Zoom link. If you want to get on and join. Other than that, you got any announcements?
No, I just want to say that, like Juan Pablo and anybody else on here that's an Art Storefronts member already, make sure you are coming to the private member workshops. Okay, they are free. Sorry, I shouldn't say free. I mean, if you're an Art Storefronts member, they're free. if you're an Art Storefronts member, these are bi-weekly or 2 times a week, okay? Marketing consulting sessions for you, right? So there was one today at 1 o'clock Central. There will be another one on Thursday at 1 o'clock Central. Patrick is in there with his team teaching it. I'm in there pretty often. You know, it's our entire strategy to help you guys, you know, market your art, figure this stuff out. And so you get that as part of being a member. So please don't be missing out on it. Don't be missing out on it. It's the most valuable thing. It's the most valuable aspect of Art Storefronts. So all of you members out there, make sure you are attending these.
I've got a bunch of thoughts on this too. It's just such a hot button. I can't wait to delve further into this. So part 1, this isn't even part 1. This is part 0.01, the warm up. Calling it the warm up.
Sorry, Instagram. My phone's charging, and so it's been a little wacky here with my camera.
Yeah, hashtag the warm up. All right, I'm playing the outro music. I gotta go.
All right.
Oh, there it goes. It's firing. All right, thank you guys. As always, thanks for listening, and have a great day.